So about a month ago, this guy comes in online and says that we need to actually start designing loops. And since then, everybody is talking about loop engineering. And there is one flaw that I would like to talk about in loop engineering, which I think Andrej is kind of trying to solve. So Andrej is a guy who coined the term vibe coding, and he's currently working at auto research. We'll talk about it in a moment. But basically, the idea that I'm trying to now communicate for today is that models still hallucinate. Models in today's age also hallucinate, but they just do it very differently. If you remember, like in very starting, the chat gpt was introduced as a function where it will be able to predict the next words, right? Let's say I say that I would like to sip a coffee. If you feed it this line, it will be able to predict what you're going to say next, right? And it can just predict that, okay, and going to work on code or something like that, right? It is basically a prediction mechanism that works on whatever the already context it has, right? In very starting, the context window for all of these agentic programming tools such as Cloud Code, Codex, or Cursor, it was very small in size. It was, I think, 128K or even lower than that, most probably. So they used to hallucinate code a lot, right? They used to hallucinate what you ask it to do. But that problem is now solved largely. They don't hallucinate that you asked it for the different instruction and then they start doing the different thing. For example, you ask it to, color the town red, but it actually turned out coloring the town blue, right? But it doesn't do that. It understands that throughout the window. I think they solved it probably through memory. But there is another problem that I think model still has, which is based on the research, right? Which is, can you actually truly ask it to do the research for you? And can you truly believe the research that it will do for you or not, right? Because as a junior engineer, you might be actually, let's say, get paid to do something that is already told to you. But as a senior software engineer, as a staff engineer, or on a very high role, or if you are trying to be a founder for a company, it is very important for you to know if the thing that you're trying to do itself is really important or not. Is this actually going to earn you money? Is this going to actually make you successful? And if you should pivot or not, right? So pivoting has been the most important thing in software engineering. If you look at any of the lessons by Paul Graham, right? So he is the founder of Y Combinator, right? He has many essays, and one of the important thing he specifically says or talk about is that it is very important for you to pivot, and that is very important for startups as well. Because what can happen is, let's say you have idea one, right? You have idea one, you have limited time, maybe let's say week 4 weeks to prove it to you that does it work or not, right? After 4 weeks, let's say, first of all, you have to know that the time is very limited, so you will be very creative in mind. From very starting itself, you will be, let's say, trying to reduce the ton of features that you would not want to build because the customer actually cares about something very specific. In case of Dropbox, I think customers only care about files or folders showing up, so he's not going to care about sharing the files or etc etc. He's only going to make sure that customers are able to upload the files or upload the folders, right? That is the minimal viable product, MVP, that I think was the coin termed by the startup world, right? And I think by Peter Thiel most probably. So just because the time was very limited, we always used to default on creativity, and based on the creativity, we used to decide that we are going to limit the amount of work that we are going to do, and then we are going to deploy it to the market, right? And then we are going to deploy and see and look at the results. And actually this used to happen before even this vibe coding showed up, right? People used to go and then think about ideas. People used to code for 4 hours continuously, sorry, for 4 weeks continuously, maybe 12 hours a day, and they used to develop their programs and publish it to the world and wait for the results, wait for the feedback, and then pivot based on that, right? So this was the idea of software engineering, and actually these people who were able to pivot, who were able to decide on what things are that they don't need to do, they were the most successful people. On the other side, there were a set of people who used to only think about programming, who only used to think about the programming patterns or software engineering patterns, they might become famous on, let's say, building some library, etc. But in the product world, in the startup world, they will most probably fail because they would not rush to actually go to market and then try to fail. Now what's happening is that these days, first of all, this 4 week window is now, you can say 4 days, but I think in reality it is still 4 weeks. But rather than actually going for creativity, rather than going to think about that how do you actually with the creativity try to solve the right problem for the right people, you actually end up developing everything. That is what I think the loop engineering is going to be about for the lot more people. Rather than them actually trying to use the creativity, first of all, through loop, they will try to build out everything, right? And then after building out everything, they still will try to now deploy to market. But at this point, just because there is no creativity, just because they haven't really figured out their priorities yet, they will not be able to decide on how to win. They will not be able to decide and look at how the market will reward them, right? And they are not looking for those signals just because they think that they have built everything, and then the market now comes at the end, right? Now let's say market comes in and says and tells you that okay, now you need to market is first of all not going to tell you that you need to develop a different product. It is going to be your own intuition. It is going to be the intuition that okay, do you get the 10 users who really fall in love with you, or do you have 100 users or 1,000 users who just barely like you and then maybe come to your website once in a time, and then they don't go through the bunch of features that you have built out through loop engineering, basically the 100x product that you really wanted to build, right? At that point also you had to use the creativity. That was the whole goal. It was that okay, you go and look at the market, you use the creativity, and then you loop it back to the idea, and then you loop it back to the market. But with the model hallucination, now what's happening is that rather than you using your own creativity, you would actually ask the model to tell you about that are you succeeding or not, or are you going to win or not, right? Most people will be stuck in this part only, by the way. I think what most people will do is they will just try to build something and then again build more and then build something and then again build more, and they will try to do that again and again and again just because they're able to build something. That's what the core of engineering, software engineers is. Software engineers love to build things. They don't really care if they build the wrong thing, but even if they end up building the wrong thing, they would fall in love with it and they would just try to push it more, right? Rather than actually you trying to build less and then go to market and then try to solve the problem, the right problem, and then going back to creativity and then going back to the idea loop and then trying to push it to the market, right? So now what's happening is the point that I'm trying to prove is that modern hallucination now happens at the large scale. It is happening where you will come up with one product idea that hey, this is what I would want to develop, and then model will tell you that okay, we can actually develop this thing. First of all, it will not go deep down into asking you the questions such as that how big of the customer base is. Maybe you should just not try to implement these features just because they are a bit complex, and then even if you can build it, maybe customers don't really need it, right? So don't try to just do everything that you can do. Try to do the bare minimal things that you should do and push it to market. And then because at the end of the day it is also about marketing, it is also about how your website looks like. At the end of the day it is also about that can customer will customer just show up to your website and then look at all the 100 features that you have built and get confused, right? So those things models will not ask you. Models will actually kind of agree with you. And you, if you have experience with the vibe coding as well, you would also agree with me that these days what's happening is that you will give the model some idea. Model might just drift a bit over there and here, telling you that you maybe would want to do things certain way. But once you agree, once you actually develop the roadmap, once you develop the 100 GitHub issues or 100 Jira issues, it will not drift now. It will just stick to those ideas and it will try to develop them. And doesn't matter how much of the loops it's going to take. Doesn't matter if it is going to take a million loops. It's not going to come to you and say that I feel like I'm tired now. I feel like I'm lost now. I feel like we should have just cut down on the features that we are building and then not try to push out so much and then use the creativity. It will never do that. Has it ever happened to you that the loop that you are running or the vibe coding that you are running, the model actually stops in between and says that, hey, but are we actually doing? Are we actually going to deploy anything to market, or you are just going to build and build and build? It never happens. Does it ever happen to you that your cloud could ask you that, hey, we built out something last week as well. Did he try to push it out to market? And if he did try to push it out to market, did he get any results? It doesn't try to learn from it because it's only going to do whatever you tell it to do, and it is only going to do the reinforcement of that. So that is what I think Perplexity and then others are figuring out in the research, right? So I was looking at the research paper, or rather the thing that the Karpathy is now working on. So it is called auto search. Auto search is basically where you would train the model itself to code and then self-correct itself based on some prompt, and then it will be able to, let's say, develop the new version and then correct itself and then develop the new version and the better version, and it will be in the training loop. We can go in the auto search a little bit later, not in this video, because it can actually end up taking a lot more time. But there is this issue that is opened on this, which is that maybe telling the model to have fun could increase its creativity. I really like the idea of meta improvements. The task of the human is not anymore to do low level improvements on the code directly, but instead to optimize the prompts for agent search loop. If there would be some way to measure the efficiency of the prompt in the program.md, one could even let the agent improve its own prompt. I feel like model optimization is getting abstracted to the higher level. Maybe the next level of agents can be reached not by some clever new RL algorithm, but just by finding the right prompt. Would be really cool to formulate this repo in more general way. With what I mean, to make it possible to solve any kind of problem where you can define an evaluation framework, like a framework for some kind of a next level machine learning. And Karpathy actually replied to this on this article. So in this article, he says that that if you look at it, right, that he's not directly replying to the GitHub issue. I think he's replying to the other thread that is there on the Hacker News. And what he says is that it can modify code. The notion of hyperparameter dissolves. There is no need to run sweeps. It is fully automatic. It doesn't require human in the loop. You are right. Many of the changes it seems to make out of box. It seems to be tuning existing hyperparameters. Not all the changes are like that. I try to replace the non-linear, etc. I will say that overall, the LLM feels unwillingly to creatively pursue a research direction or something like that. So this is very important, and this one is coming from the guy who actually coined the term by coding, who worked at OpenAI, who worked at Tesla, and now is at Anthropic, right? He says that LLM feels unwilling to creatively pursue a research direction or something like that. The model feels very cagey and scared when they are given problems that are little too open-ended. So what he's trying to say is that when you ask model to do this thing basically, which is to have fun, right? Or when you ask model to be open-ended and then try to bring in and use its own creativity to solve something, it might actually pick out on some topics. Let's say there are 10 different topics and it will pick out on one topic, let's say topic 1, and then it will build out the loop to go ahead and then create many of the tasks for it to do and then implement it. But after it has implemented those tasks, it is not going back to the idea 1 and then trying to figure out if it was really the right thing to do or not, or if they should have rather moved to idea 2. I would say the best software engineers or the best founders are going to be those which are able to actually go back to idea 1, able to delete the idea, delete the folder, delete the code, and then nuke the code and nuke the database and everything, and then actually move on to idea 2, which might actually give you success. Because at the end of the day, you can't just be stuck with the same boring thing and again and again and again and then keep on pushing it to customers if you are not getting any customers. Yes, you need to have some persistence. Yes, you need to actually think about how to stay persistent and then stay motivated and then just work on the same problem again and again and again. But you need to somehow somewhere also need to think about it from the different perspective. Maybe painting the tone red is not everything that you need to do, or maybe painting the tone blue is not what you need to do. Maybe you just need to wear the glasses that are of blue color or of red color, right? So you need to think about it from different perspective as well, and that different perspective is what human has. Human sometimes, like, what will happen to you is that you will have the very difficult problem that you want to solve, and you might be spending hours and hours trying to code it at the night time, and then you are not able to solve it. but once you actually wake up in the morning, the problem is already solved. The reason behind why that happens is because we're able to switch off our mind. We're able to switch off those neurons that were getting fired for that idea one. And once that happens, once our mind is calm, it is able to realize that shit, the actual thing that we might need to do is to look into idea 2 or look into idea 3, and then pivot a bit and then try to solve the problems in a different way. And that is what's missing in actually the model hallucination that is there in all of these models like cloud code, etc. Even I think Fable would be having the same problem. And what loop engineering does is loop engineering actually enforces this thing again and again and again, because these models are actually built on the idea of human reinforcement. I think it must be somewhere over here where he has written. I was just reading through this article. By the way, go ahead and then try to search for auto research, because I think Andres Karpathy is actually on the right idea. He's trying to actually figure out how to solve this exact problem where AI agents are able to search the open-ended problems as well and then maybe use its own creativity. And not just Andres, but also the Alpha Evolve, which is I think for DeepMind. They're also trying to solve the same problem. So go ahead and then try to search about it. It is actually the right approach. Yes, he did coin the term vibe coding, but now he's going to be the research advisor, you can say. And what now he's saying is that yes, like you are not writing the code directly 99% of the time, you are orchestrating the agents who do and acting as oversight. So he was able to actually kind of understand when he was the first one to coin the term vibe coding, and then he would have done a lot of agentic engineering as well. He was able to understand this idea somewhere that these models are not able to use and have its own creativity to actually solve the open-ended problem. So we will talk about it a lot in next few videos, how to research. Comment down if you want to talk about it, and I will make a videos on that topic specifically. But one thing I would tell you, one thing that you can get out of this video is that models still hallucinate. They just hallucinate on a very big level, and they can actually change your whole product strategy by just sticking you to one simple idea, whether you are building it or not, or whether you are building it with hundreds of agents or whether you are building it with thousands of agents. Doesn't matter. If the idea is wrong, if the thing that you are building is wrong and model is actually reinforcing you, and the person that you are going back to actually ask the question that should you continue on this path is the model itself, you are going to end up in a very bad situation in few months or something, because model is going to reinforce the same bad ideas. And then what's happening in a bad way also is that we have the research agents now who are going to research on what to do next, and those research agents will also be kind of reinforced on the same data that you use to decide on the same kind of things, unless you have a very specific prompt in your research agents or to be contradictory. It's going to actually agree on you. And what I think is going to happen is, even if you ask it to be contradictory, it is going to maybe end up contradicting you by just making something up. At the end of the day, you have to be creative. At the end of the day, you have to use the human element of how to build out new things, because you have to remember, even before vibe coding, even before all of the engineering, people were able to build out a beautiful products like Linux, right? Like GitHub itself, Git itself, Facebook, Twitter, and then let's say Adobe, like a big projects, or the big games like GTA 5. So this is not the first time that we are doing the software engineering, and this is also not going to be the last time. If you want to be the software engineer, you have to think from the first creative thoughts. Don't lose the creativity. Don't just spit it out the loop engineering, where you will think that creativity is going to be now the part of the software engineering loop that you are going to generate. No, it's not going to happen. You have to be there. This has to be you. Doesn't matter how many loops you create. Doesn't matter if there are 100 agents or 1,000 agents developing the things for you. Creativity has to be there. At the end of the day, the main goal of your products is not to just deploy the things. It is to actually deploy the minimal version that people are actually going to use, which is, let's say, just to have one great idea which your sort of software which your customers actually need, and they actually use your product a lot, even if it is shitty, just because they need that one idea, and they're able to solve it, and they come back to your product again and again and again, and they come back and watch the thing that you are building, and they actually desperately want you to improve on it, but still you end up just deploying that one MVP version which is not coming with 100 ideas. So don't try to push out the product with 100 ideas. Try to think about the one core idea that actually matters, and then try to build upon that instead. Models still hallucinate. Don't think that models don't. They just hallucinate and then will end up failing you very badly. You might not even realize it. So come back to your, uh, come back to the books that I think we always used to read. Come back to the articles that you always used to read, and come back to software architecture. Because at the end of the day, if you're just developing the product for developing the product sake, I mean, and you're not succeeding, and the very simple way to know that if you're succeeding or not is just ask yourself from last 3 or 4 months, if you are developing 100x output, where is the success, where is the money, there is the thing that you want to build, or where is the thing that you want to actually build and then be successful. And if you have built it while you're not successful, maybe the idea part itself was wrong, maybe the creativity part itself was wrong, maybe it is not just all about AI agents, maybe it is not just all about software engineering, maybe sometimes it is also about business, sometimes it is also about creativity, sometimes it is also about thinking. At the end of the day, if you have still amount to think that models don't hallucinate, just try to ask it to create one YouTube video and then look at the title, look at the captions it is going to make. And if you think that caption is going to make you successful or give you the video that is going to earn you the 100 million views, well, I would ask you, why are not people doing that already? So just know it doesn't know how to be successful, it know how to code, and the successful part you have to figure it out by yourself. Do subscribe and comment down, and if you have more ideas that you would want me to work on, let me know. How to research agent is the next thing. Comment down, subscribe, and I will see you next video. Thank you.